Okay guys, we're testing out the streams and the first thing I have to see is if YouTube is receiving it, and yes it is. And I have to see if Facebook is receiving anything. So let's switch over. We switched computer systems, so that's why we have to check everything. So let's open up Facebook and I think we're live there too. Yes we are. Hey guys, welcome in our studio. And today it's the more like a Q&A version of Digital Classroom. And we are running everything on new settings, so we are now outputting 1080p instead of 720p, so the image quality should be a lot better. However, the image quality you're seeing now is not the image quality you're gonna get, because I'm now actually streaming with, in front of me, a Logitech webcam. Now, why a webcam? Very simple. We are running in complete trouble with mirroring my desktop. Now, we had this problem before on the Mac, so it's not a PC thing. It has something to do with the updated Wirecast, and somehow we're not able to get a nice flow with the desktop. So sometimes it works, and sometimes it's 3, 4, 5 seconds, even 10 seconds later, or it doesn't update at all. So we are looking into that. So if you have any suggestions, leave comments below, please. Okay, and we have somebody online, Pablo. Hey Pablo, how are you? Good to see you online. Now, today was more of a Q&A and photo critique. So first question that came in was actually very simple. Frank, how do you operate your strobes with smoke? The answer is incredibly simple. If you think about it, what is smoke? Smoke is a big reflector, deflector, and of course a modifier. So it makes your light a little bit softer, it reflects your light back. So you have to be careful with that. Now, imagine driving in your car in the fog. What happens when you turn on your headlights? Very simple. You get all that light back from the smoke, right? Or from the fog in that case. So what you have to do when you do your setup with your models in the studio is make sure that when you put your lights on your model, you don't do it straight on. Now imagine this. This is your model. And here you have all this smoke. And here you have the strobe. So what happens if you shoot it? The smoke will actually reflect back the light. So you will get a nice washed out image if that's your thing. But most people don't. So the idea of smoke is to actually backlight it, because if you backlight it, you also see the smoke better. And now place your model where you normally would place the model, and my advice is backlight the smoke, and then your main light, place it under an angle, like a 90-degree angle or 80-degree angle, whatever your preference is in contrast. And at that point, you won't get that nasty reflection back from the smoke. You can, of course, make sure that there's no smoke in front of the face of the model. And that can be awesome. For example, with a snoot, you just aim it at your model, you pump the smoke into the room, and at that point, well, let's just hope it's not in front of her face. You also see a lot of people shooting smoke, and they only have smoke on the background. So you have your model, and you have the background with smoke. For me, that doesn't work. It feels a little bit glued on. So I would not advise you guys to do that for the very simple reason you want your model to make connection with your background, in this case, the smoke. So make sure that she's in front of the smoke, but also that the smoke has a wraparound effect. Let me put it that way. Okay, I also asked you guys for some photos for photo critique. And we got some in, but again, the desktop is very, very flaky. So I'm just gonna do my best. So don't complain if it doesn't work. So let's switch to mirroring picture in picture. Okay, there we go. So if I'm correct now, you actually see my picture in picture. And let me see if there are any questions on Facebook, by the way. We switched computer systems so that... Okay, let's turn down the volume here, because I don't want any volume. Now, normally Anyweek, of course, helps me, but I'm now alone. So, hey, Frank from Ireland. And hi, my friend from Greece. Hello, Paris. Parisis? Great name. Okay, so no questions in. Please, guys, ask questions, because that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you guys with something. Okay, so here we have an image that came in. And, well, I'm not, how do you call it? A lot of people think that I only do model photography, but that's not true, of course. I love to do all kinds of photography. So also this kind of stuff. Now, what do I like here? I love the way that the shooter works with his shadows. So you have this beautiful shadow and this feather, and you have to see something like that, you know? A lot of people will see like Taj Mahal or the Eiffel Tower, and they will see the Eiffel Tower and they go like, ooh, that's great, let's take a picture. But that's safe. I always call that's the Kodak shot. So in other words, you just aim your camera and it's right. One of the cool things about photography is that you have to learn to find the shot. So in this case, great, absolutely love this. Let's go to the next one. And let's see if it also switches there. You see I already switched and now it's on the screen, so that's terrible. Okay, so this shot I do like. The thing that I would change myself is I would use a tripod, because I actually zoomed in on this shot. And let me see. Okay, I think it's just the resolution. I think it's pretty sharp, so excuse me if you don't screen. Okay, so with these kind of shots, always use a tripod and make sure that it's stable. So, for example, when I do the shot from New York on Dumbo, you actually have a floating plateau where you can put your tripod on, but that will never be stable. If you walk a little bit to the left, there's actually concrete, and that's way more stable. And make sure that you also weigh down your tripod if it's a little bit windy, because especially with night shots, you can get up to exposures of, let's say, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, maybe a minute. You have to make sure that the tripod is stable. Now, in this case, I love it in black and white, but I personally would shoot it in color. For the very simple reason, skylines are so incredibly powerful with lights and with colors. So my preferences is color, and further, there's nothing wrong with the skyline. It looks great. So I wouldn't change a thing, just put it in color. But hey, again, that's my personal opinion, right? Okay, here we go. This is a shot probably in a museum. Let's go to 100%. This was the one. You see that there is a story here, but for me as a casual viewer, it's a little bit too, how do you call it, too obvious. Now, let me explain this. So, you all know those shots where you go to the beach and you have to hold the sun and somebody takes a picture, right? Or you go to the Eiffel Tower and you do this and the Eiffel Tower is inside. Those are the shots that doesn't excite me as much as a photographer, because it's an easy catch. As a photographer, I would love to see that kind of shots done slightly differently. And in this case, the thing that I do like about this shot is that you actually see the photographer in the picture. So you have the statue on top, you have the three guys, and girl by the way, on the bottom doing that same pose, and you have the photographer taking the shot. And that makes this shot for me a little bit in doubt, like, okay, I do like it, but maybe I would have tried it even differently. Like, for example, I don't know. It's hard. It's always hard to critique somebody's work. So how would I shoot it? Maybe a little bit lower down. And don't take the photographer in the picture, but for example, sit on the floor with a wide angle lens and just only get the lens of the photographer in. That way you get a more engaging shot. Now, I don't know if this was staged. If this was staged, I would do it like that. If this was not staged, good eye again. Because you saw the picture, you took the picture, and that's the cool thing. You have to see it, and then you can shoot it. So, okay. Okay, this one was on a very, very low resolution. Please, guys, send high resolutions if you want critiques. The thing that I would do here is crop the shot. Oh, now my desktop is pretty much on par. This is the frustrating part. Sometimes it's on par, sometimes it's really slow. Oh, okay, now it just updated. Okay, we got a question in from Johan. Frank, did you go to the Trey Redcliffe City photo walk yesterday? How was it? I was planning on going. I really did. I talked to Trey about it and I was planning to go. But if you watched my vlog behind the closed doors, you saw that I had a problem with my foot when I came back from America. They even took x-rays and luckily nothing was broken. And yesterday, no, the day before yesterday, I did my first mountain bike ride and I came home and everything looked okay. But the next day, everything was, well, painful again, and now it's okay. So I didn't want to take the risk going on a photo walk through Amsterdam and then in the middle experiencing that I had a big problem with my foot. So no, I did not go. I don't know how it was, but knowing Trey, it probably was awesome. So yeah. Okay, so back to the picture critique. Now, I do like everything on top of her head, and that's why I don't crop it off. Now, normally I always tell people crop aggressively. So in other words, everybody has the top of their head, so why show it, right? Unless you have something really cool going on. And the other thing that I like is I love movies. So I love to have my images a little bit more wider, especially when there's like a more street scene going on or a little bit more like a movie quality. That's when I like this. So I actually like it a little bit wider, as you can see here. What would I change? Well, higher resolution. And again, I don't know if this was staged. If it was staged, a little bit of fill-in flash on the eyes. If it was not staged, well, maybe you could have asked the lady to just tilt her chin up just a little bit to get a little bit more light in her eyes. And that's the easy thing, right? A lot of people ask me like, okay, how do I do this on location? Because I walk the streets, I see people I want to shoot, but I'm afraid to ask. Never, ever be afraid to ask. The worst thing that can happen is that somebody tells you no. Nobody died from hearing no. So just ask people, because if you ask people, they probably will say yes. So that's no problem at all. Okay, I am gonna see if there are any more questions. And in between, by the way, I do want to show you guys. Okay, and we're back. Sorry for that, because I forgot to run the bumper. And remember that these episodes of Behind the Closed Doors of Digital Classroom, quite frankly, are all made possible by the companies that support us. So in this case, BenQ and Rogue for Digital Classroom. And we're very, very grateful to them that they make this possible, because Digital Classroom for years have been a dream for me to be able to do the educational and inspirational part via YouTube and Facebook Live for free for you guys. So thank you so very much for BenQ and Rogue making that possible. And they actually renewed. So yeah, another year. That's awesome, right? Okay, other questions in. Best method to be a pro in Photoshop. Thanks in advance, Professor. Well, not a professor. One question in between. I'd like to submit an image to get your opinion on it. How and where can I send it to you? If you want it in this episode, that will not be possible anymore, because I can open my mail. Just send it to info@frankdoorhof.com. I will put it in the, let me put it here in the chat room. If I can, different mouse, sorry, different computer. Okay, just send it here. Different keyboard. Oh, this is terrible, sorry guys. Okay, just send it there. And if you send it, please let me know, and I will open up my email and I will take the picture out and look at it. Okay, best method to be a pro in Photoshop. Thanks in advance. Well, being a pro in Photoshop, you have to realize that when are you a pro? First off, you're a pro when you're getting paid for your work. The thing is, what you probably mean is how to get really good at Photoshop. Personally, I learned everything myself. So in other words, when I started doing Photoshop, I just tried. I just did stuff, and that was about it. So slowly I learned. And when I started doing layers, that's when my light bulb went off, and I was going like, ooh, this is interesting. If we have layers, we can actually make this work. And layers were absolutely awesome. The moment that I started realizing how they worked, that was when my whole workflow literally exploded. Another thing to get really good at Photoshop, go to Calby1, calby1.com. They have the best instructors for Photoshop, in my opinion, and they just have a boatload of information on Photoshop. Follow Scott Calby online. He has this Lightroom tips, Photoshop tips, and those guys at Calby1 are just absolutely amazing with what they share, and also the free stuff. So if you follow Scott's personal page or the Calby1 personal page, that's where you get a lot of information on Photoshop. And of course, subscribe to Calby1. And you can also find videos from me there. Okay, let me see. Do you use a lot of cropping or try to get the composition in one frame or both? Tom, always get the composition right in camera. Because if you get the composition right in camera, you don't have to do anything when you're home. So always get it right in camera, because in camera, that's where it happens. That's where you get the nice flow. Now you can actually see through your viewfinder what will be the final image. And as soon as you get into Photoshop, sometimes you take a shot. Let me put it this way. I had students in the past that literally refused to do the cropping in camera. Oh, I will crop that in Photoshop. I have 16 megapixels. That's more than enough. I will crop. Sounds ridiculous now, right? With 42 and up. But anyway. So they had more than enough megapixels, so they would crop it later in Photoshop. So let me put it this way. Sometimes I like to tease people a little bit. So I made a composition where it was literally impossible to not shoot it without cropping later, without cropping in camera. And indeed, he couldn't crop it. And why? Because, well, if you cropped it and you kept the same aspect ratio, it just didn't work. And that's when I started to realize that most people, when they shoot, what they do, and this is really weird, so they take the camera, center focus point, and they just press. So the model is in the center, you have this lots of dead space, a buffer, and actually your hands, for example, are cut off. The best thing, I'm a big advocate of using the center focus point. The best thing is focus on the eyes. Now tilt the camera down. Of course, you will keep focus, and then press the shutter button. The cool thing is, if you do that technique, your composition will be different all the time, because you can do hold focus. Now move that way, move up, down, whatever. You go wherever you want, and then you press through and you have the shot. Now some people will use the joystick or the variable focus points. The thing is, if you shoot, you want to be able to concentrate on what you're shooting, the expression of the model, the lighting, that everything is correct. You don't want to be bothered by where should I put my focus point. So use that center focus point. And I know a lot of people talk about if you move your camera with the center focus point, you will get out of focus shots. Guys, I've been doing this for many, many years. If you have proper technique, and it means breathing and keeping the camera in front and don't move forwards and backwards while moving, you will have great shots, even on 1.2 or 1.4. Remember that in the old days, when you did manual focus, there was only the center. You couldn't focus outside the center for the very simple reason you needed that tool. And that tool was in the center of your frame. And, well, those photographers shot also wide open and had great composition and sharpness, most of them. So keep that center focus, focus on the eyes, and now just move to the position where you are, and then press. The cool thing is, if you have a Sony camera, by the way, with the G Master lenses, then you can actually use something called eye focus. You can program one of the buttons, press the button, and as by voodoo, the camera will actually find the eyes of the model. First it will find the face, and then it will find the eyes. And believe me or not, it really works. So that's one of the cool tricks about the Sony system. Okay, let me see if we have more questions in. Thank you so very much, Philip. Been watching your channel for a while now and think you're a star from sunny North Ireland. Thank you. I don't consider myself a star, but it's always nice if people tell you that. So thank you so very much. You know, I just love to share stuff with you guys. I love to do the live broadcasts. I love digital classroom. The vlog is something that's a cool story. It's actually started because we had personnel at that time in the computer store, which we sold in 2013. And every time when we went on a trip to the workshops, and those are intense, we came back and they always were going like, how was your holiday? I was just going like, I could kill you, because that's not a holiday. And at one point we decided to just film one trip. There was actually a trip to Denmark. And we showed it to them and they were going like, how can you do that stuff? Because you don't have a minute of free time. I was going like, that's what we do. And that's what I love, right? And a few months ago, almost a year I think now, people started asking me like, okay, how does your week look and what do you do? So we decided to do 1 or 2 episodes called Behind the Closed Doors. And in all honesty, it's very, very addictive. So I really love to share that stuff with you guys. And we started out with an iPhone and later on the RX100. And now we do it with the Sony 6500, and we have Bluetooth audio. So we try to up the ante constantly, and it's just cool that you guys love what we do. And that's why we always ask you guys, please like and share, because if you share and actually subscribe to the channel, we get picked up by YouTube as recommended videos, and that's when we can grow And the more we grow, the more stuff we can give you guys, because that's how modern economy works. If we get more subscribers and more views, we get more support from companies, and those companies make it possible that we actually give this stuff for free for you guys. So think about that next time you see my videos. Hit that like button if you like it, of course. And otherwise, don't. But please do. Okay, let me see if there were any more questions. Okay, image was sent, and thank you so much for your help. I've grown so much using your advice. Well, I hope a good diet works. No, I'm just kidding. I know what you mean with growing. Okay, let me see if I can open up my mail from here on a second screen. So sorry for that, guys. Just bear with me. Okay. There we go. Okay, we got some more images in. So let me save this one first. Okay. And David Jones. And save. Okay, guys. So let me see if I can open up those images too. I've got 2 more images. Okay. Let me switch over to this screen. Okay, first one. Love the shot, really nice. I would have liked a little bit more space in front of the model. Now, you can fix this very difficult. And this is what I mean with cropping later in Photoshop, because everything else is cool, but you shot it in portrait mode. Now, one of the things that I like about photography is that there's also a landscape mode. So if you shoot a portrait, and this is really some advice that I like to give you guys, and I learned the hard way because I was always wondering, like, why doesn't this image work? And the thing is, again, I love movies, and video is always like this, like landscape. And somehow I'm triggered more in landscape. I'm going to show you that really fast. Let me see what Photoshop can do. So go to canvas size. And again, my desktop is lagging as crazy, so you won't see what I'm doing probably. Or you do, and then that's even more frustrating, because then sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, sometimes it's better if it never works, or at least if it always works the same. Because if it sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, makes it really hard to find what's wrong. Okay, let me make an... And this probably will suck like crazy, but you know what? Content aware fill. Oh, that's some Photoshop magic. Wow. Okay, that's not as bad as I thought it would be. It's pretty amazing. Okay, let me go here. Don't crop. And just crop the sides a little bit. Now, of course, it messes up with the shoulder, but I think that's pretty cool. Wow. Okay, but you see the difference, right? Now you have a more filmic look. You have a more spread look, and I like that way more. It gives a little bit more room. Okay, let me see for the other picture. And that's this one. Okay, same here. Shot it in portrait mode. Try to shoot it in landscape mode, because it just makes the picture more real. The other thing is the eyes. Now look at the eyes. Let's go to 100%. Now, when you shoot somebody, and the eyes are very important, because if she looks that way, you have a lot of eye wide. If she looks straight ahead, you will have the pupil in the middle, a little bit of eye wide there, a little bit of eye wide there. And that's way more pleasing. I sometimes call this, and this is not, by the way, but I sometimes call those shots the Walking Dead, because they actually move their head even more, and then you only see eye wide. In this case, again, this is not one of the Walking Dead images, but you see what I mean, right? There's a lot of eye wide, and the eyes are just going somewhere more in a corner. What I always tell models is center your eyes. In other words, don't look anywhere, just center them. So look straight ahead, move your head, and don't move your eyes. And that way you always have that perfect eye movement. Okay, let me see. Let's go to fit on screen. The pose itself, just tilt the head a little bit that way. Let me see if we can, now that I am confident that Photoshop can do magic. And trust me, this will be terrible. I just want to show you something. Okay, let's go to transform, rotate. Again, this looks terrible. But you see what I mean? When you tilt the head that way, you will get a way more like an S-curve in the image. And I find that way more pleasing because now the image just flows. And that's something that I truly like. And don't do it in Photoshop, do it on set. Because the more you do on set, the less you have to do in Photoshop. Hey guys, is the audio still in sync? And is the audio quality good? How is the webcam doing? And again, the desktop is something we're working on. We're going to hardwire that for the next time because this is just frustrating as heck. Because now if I, for example, take a brush, I will show you exactly what I mean. I will do a brush stroke. Oops. Let me do this. Select, deselect. And now it works. This is ridiculous. And the only thing I changed is now Photoshop is actually in full screen mode. Maybe I solved the problem. Yeah, we'll see. So we're going to test this a little bit more. Let me see if we have more questions. Veel ruis. Okay, Gino, I don't know where the noise is coming from, but the noise could be actually the Roland mixer because I'm very close to the mixer. So if I turn this way, is the noise less? Probably the noise now is a lot less because now you don't hear the mixer. And let me see, enjoying your tea, Jurjen. Yes, I am. Tomorrow's vlog will be awesome for you. We actually, let me give you the backstory. Okay, so let me switch here. I hope you guys also like to chit chat a little bit. So the backstory is I'm always looking out for my health. So I do a lot of exercising and other stuff. And one of the things in my diet that's absolutely not good, and I know, it's Diet Coke. So I eat a lot of fish, salads, and we don't eat a lot of potatoes, mostly substituted by mushrooms. So the only thing that really is bad in my diet is Diet Coke. And the thing about Diet Coke is, of course, the aspartame and sucrose, which actually makes you feel like you get sugar, which you actually don't. So I'm looking for an alternative. And we actually found something. And tomorrow I'm going to show you what we do. But it has something to do, indeed, with tea, ice, and some other ingredients. So make sure you check out tomorrow's episode of Behind Closed Doors, because I'm going to show you how I make it. It takes a long time to create, but you can make 2 liters at once or 4. And I still have to experiment a little bit, but it's interesting. Let me put it that way. Okay. Photo sent in. Okay, let me see if I can access my mail again. And if we have, okay, this is a photo via WeTransfer. Get file. Okay, guys, one moment. Download. Okay, so let's open the file I just got in. File. Open. Downloads. Let me see. Okay, that's the file. Okay, let me switch back. There we go. Oh, this is so frustrating that everything works now. Although it's not really frustrating, it works, but I don't trust it. You know that feeling when you don't trust something? And when doing live shows, I really have to trust my stuff. So we are going to test this more. Okay, really love this shot, Johan. There's nothing much I would change. Personally, and this is just nitpicking, maybe, just maybe, yeah, like that better. That's about it. Now, maybe I would also clean up. Let me go into 100%. Oh, it looks really nice. I would maybe clean up a little bit of those hairs there. Let me see if I can do that. This is a good test to see if I can now actually see my brush. So I'm doing this with the mouse. Sorry, I'm normally using the Wacom. Yeah, we'll probably just take these hairs out. It works great. That's about it. Okay, so that's about it. I wouldn't do anything else. It looks pretty good. So, and if something looks pretty good, why change it? So maybe a little bit of that crop and just cleaning up the hairs a little bit. Let me see if we have any questions on Facebook, and then I'm going to end it, because I think for now we know if we have any audio delays or whatever. Let me see. Okay, Adiel said, oh, wait a minute. I have to change over to my big camera. Adele took the cognitive test based in the United Kingdom. I don't know what you mean with that, Adele. So ice make you feel sugared? No, ice doesn't. I'm using ice as ice cubes, water. So don't think about ice. Ice is ice baby. No, don't think of ice as ice cream. I'm literally using ice cubes, but I'm going to explain that tomorrow in Behind Closed Doors. I'm going to show you that. Bubbles, water, and a thirst. Thirst is important. How are you going to fix the smile? Adele, and I don't know if you're watching another stream, but I don't understand the thing about the cognitive test and the smile. So, oh, maybe you mean the smile on the shot. One moment. No, that smile looks pretty good. So I don't know what you mean. Maybe you can, let me see. And the blue channel too high. Any experience with histograms, Johan? What about the below the eyes and between the nose? Adelaide, I hope I pronounced it correct. I don't know where you're going with the questions. Remember, you're looking at a picture and you're looking at a histogram. The picture and the histogram don't have any interconnection. You can't look at a histogram and say the blue channel is too high. If you have a gray card, like an 18% gray card, let me show you very quickly. Let me go to File, New, Create. Okay, so now if I create, let's say 18% gray. Let's not make 18%, just do something. There you go. Now if you look at the histogram, you see a spike in the middle, right? And you don't see any red, green, and blue next to each other. And oh, wait a minute, I have to show you my screen. Oh, that's very smart. Okay, so now I have an 18% gray, and you see a spike somewhere in the middle. Now you don't see red, green, and blue next to each other, and that's because it's 18% gray. So there's an equal amount of red, green, and blue. If you look at a picture, like the picture you saw before, you can't say the blue channel is too high because you see a spike in the blue. Maybe there's blue in the background, which in that picture actually there is blue in the background. So don't judge a picture by its histogram. Always forget about the histogram, just look at the picture. And remember that we're streaming to YouTube, and YouTube does a lot of compression with the shots. Maybe you're not looking on a calibrated monitor, but look at the picture. Don't look at the histogram. It's the best tip I can give you guys. Don't ever look at the histogram. The histogram is only a representation of the tones that are actually in a shot. So if you, for example, shoot a snowman in the snow and you aim for that center point, you will actually end up with what your camera does with a reflective light meter. In other words, it tries to make everything 18% gray. But a snowman in the snow shouldn't show up as a spike in the middle. It should show up as a spike all the way to the right. Now, if you shoot a black cat in a black mine, it shouldn't end up as a spike in the middle. It should end up as a spike all the way to the left. So forget about histograms, please. Don't judge a picture by its histogram. Trust me. Okay, nice show. Thank you so very much. Shot and corrected with a color checker, so the color and white balance should be right. Okay, so let me go back. Okay, so Adelaide, and I hope I pronounce your name correctly, so sorry if I don't. So pictures and histograms don't connect, and the gray, and aren't there gray grams too? Blue in the background, I'm using Apple color. Okay, the first thing you have to stop doing, use Apple color. Don't use Apple color. Use something like this. One moment. This. This is an X-Rite color analyzer, and this is a relatively cheap one. This is the i1 display. You can buy them approximately for $100. And calibrate your screen. Don't trust Apple Color or Windows Color. Those are great for consumers. They want to set up their computer within seconds, and they want to go like, oh, I don't want to do calibrations. I will just do something. That's great when you use Apple Color. For anything else, anything that's remotely professional or remotely video or photography based, use X-Rite color checkers for your shoot. And X-Rite color analyzers for the calibration. Of course, they're different brands, but hey, we're sponsored by X-Rite, so I will always tell you that X-Rite is the best, which I actually also believe. Otherwise, I wouldn't let X-Rite sponsor me, for the very simple reason I won't promote anything that I don't believe in. So X-Rite color checkers, absolutely highly advise you, and stop using Apple Color. The connection histogram image, many books tell you that the histogram is incredibly important. Those books are wrong. The histogram is totally not important. The histogram only shows you what's in the picture. So if the picture is solid black, the histogram should be all the way to the left. If the image is solid white, the histogram should be all the way to the right. If it's 18% gray, it should be in the middle. If you have a picture, you will see red, green, and blue going all over the place. If you have a blue background, the blue will be there. If you have a green background, you know what I mean, right? So don't do it too technical. Look at the pictures and use proper tools like the X-Rite color checker, a light meter, and a color analyzer. And as soon as you start realizing that, you will see that the histogram is totally not important. Okay. What ranges does your color checker refer? The color checker is two ways. One, you can do your color balance on it. So in other words, you go into Lightroom or Photoshop and you just pick the gray and it will make it neutral gray, meaning that red, green, and blue is in an equal value. The other thing is there are a lot of dots, and I don't have one very close to me, or I have to stand up, and I don't want to do that now in front of the cameras. So, not because it's just on the other side of the studio and I don't want to leave the camera on. So anyway, so what you have to realize is that the color checker has all these patches. And those patches represent red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, yellow, and anything in between, like purple or whatever. Now, those patches have a certain value. And they're actually divided into X, Y, and a big Y. Now, the X and Y are hue and saturation. The big I is luminosity. And those patches should have an equal setting for X, Y, Y, if it's perfect red or perfect green or perfect blue. Those values are fixed, so they are known. Now, when you have a color checker and you bring it into Lightroom, you run a certain software package, and that's actually delivered with the color checker. And it will check what is the red value on the color checker and what is the red value in the computer. So what should it be and what is it? And it will correct that. And it will do this for all those patches. So let's say red is a little bit shifted towards green. It will actually push it back, and then you have perfect reds, or as far as possible, of course. So that means that if you shoot, for example, with a Nikon, a Sony, and a Canon in one wedding, and use a color checker, in the end, all the images will look pretty similar. There will still be slight differences, but they will look pretty similar. We call that also sometimes a lab lookup table. So you know the values that are coming in, and if they are not correct, it will actually be shifted, and now they are correct. And we call that ICC profiling, or in the case of the color checker, DCP profiling, but that's very technical. The ICC profiling is actually also what you do for your printer, for your monitor, for your scanner, and of course for your camera in the case of the color checker. So as soon as you know that the reds are reds and the blues are blues and the greens are green, etc., you know that you have proper colors. Now, a lot of people will go like, yeah, but that takes away my creativity. No, it doesn't. Because from there on, you have your base. And from that base, you can start building, for example, a nice, let's say, Rolei look or a Velvia look. The cool thing is, because you use a light meter and a color checker and you have a calibrated display, that look that you create, for example, 10% more green, 10% a little bit more hue, a little bit more saturation, you know what I mean, right? You're just messing with the picture to get the look that you like. Let me call it, you Instagram the heck out of a picture. You store that as a setting, and then as soon as you have stored that as a setting, you will actually, the next time you run it, get exactly that same look. And there we have a color checker. So this is the part of the color checker you actually use. And you see here, you can do your proper white balance. And over here, you have all these colors. And these colors are represented by coordinates. And those coordinates are stored in a DCP profiling. And if you use any other device, it's stored as an ICC profile. So, and when you do this, you have a proper base. Okay, let me see if we have any other... that's a really good one. Let me see. These are 3 separate tools. I mainly remember dots from the printing world, CMYK. Yeah, yes and no. CMYK is cyan, yellow, magenta, and key. It's not black, it's key. Now, often black is used as key because that determines the luminosity. But that has to do with the inks that are being used. And nowadays, CMYK in printers, you also have RGB in printers. So that doesn't work anymore that way. Now, you do have to realize that there are 2 displays. So you have a display that emits lights and that absorbs light. So a print absorbs lights, subtractive colors, and adaptive colors. And sorry if I mispronounce that. So a screen will emit light, and those panels are always RGB and sometimes even yellow nowadays, but normally RGB. And you have the printed colors, and those are CMYK and nowadays also RGB sometimes in printers. So don't confuse those with the calibration. First you have to get in, and in Photoshop there are only 3 channels, red, green and blue. You can find those under your channels. So with those 3 channels, red, green and blue, you actually create your image. And the histogram also contains RGB. Now sometimes they actually don't show RGB, but only the grays, and that's a center, how do you call it, evaluate, histogram, sorry. I'm Dutch, you know, so English is not my native tongue. Let me see, any other questions? But if you shoot outside, then you only have the histogram, so use the histogram. No, don't use the histogram. Never use the histogram, use a light meter. Because the light meter will tell you exactly how the exposure of your model is. This is something that a lot of people confuse. How do you know if your model is properly exposed if you don't use that light meter? If you just look at the histogram, where should the spike be? Let's say if a really dark background and your model is Caucasian, where should the spike be in the histogram? You don't know. It's not that the model is located in the center, the background is located right, and the foreground is located left. The histogram is really dumb. It just puts everything together. I don't mean you're dumb, by the way, Paul, but the histogram is really dumb. It doesn't know where it is. It's just blacks and whites and everything in between. So if you shoot your model and you should have a histogram, let me put it this way, and again, this is not how the histogram works. Let's say the histogram puts your model straight in the middle. Now you could use a histogram, but again, that doesn't work like that. So a white background or a pastel-like background because you're shooting wide open, model in the shade, background will be slightly lighter. At that point, you know, it doesn't make any sense to use that histogram. Just use a light meter on your model or just use your camera. But don't trust that histogram because there are situations where literally the histogram can show you it's great and your image will absolutely not be correct. Okay. So Chaim, actually, this is a story I always tell during workshops. I always expose half a stop over so I don't use a light meter. I kid you not, this happened during a trade show not so long ago in England. I was listening to somebody and he was claiming that a lot of people use light meters in the past. And nowadays it's not necessary anymore because you have digital cameras and yada, yada, yada. So anyway, at one point he saw me. And he just looked at me and he said, okay, and I'm going to tell you guys very straight on why I don't use a light meter. And he just looked straight at me and I was just going like, okay, this is going to be interesting, right? He said, I don't use a light meter because it doesn't work for me. For the very simple reason, I always overexpose my shots by half a stop. So I put up my finger and he was going like, yes, Frank, do you want to ask something? And I said, yeah. How do you know how to overexpose by half a stop if you don't use a light meter? And you should have seen his eyes. He was going like, yeah, oh, okay. So that light meter, the color checker, and that calibration tool should be a workflow. It should be a trinity. It should be something that you always use. And then you can forget about the histogram. Forget about it. because it will be correctly lit and it will be correctly edited and the colors will be right. And the whole histogram, just forget about it. It's not interesting. Just wrap it up, give it to somebody else as a gift. Don't. Okay, okay, somebody else. Ellen, never had a histogram way back in the film days. It's more important to know how you want the picture to turn out. The histogram is just a guide. That's what I mean, Ellen. It's just a guide. It's not even a guide. It's just something like, oh, that's how it looks. Cool. Now, don't confuse this, by the way. When you do color correcting in, for example, Resolve, and you have the strobos. Sorry, don't know the exact term. Probably you know what I mean. Those are very important because there you can actually make your levels correct, but that has nothing to do with a histogram. It's something completely different. Okay, Johan, outside I meter the light. First shot with the color checker usually works fine for me. That's totally true. So first meter the shot, first shot with the color checker, and then balance everything and it should work out just fine. Let me see, because they count, I don't know what you mean with because they count. Maybe just email me with that, Adeline. Let's see on Facebook if you have any more questions, and then I'm going to end the episode because at 2 o'clock I actually have a workshop, believe it or not. And lunch is ready, and a week is now here. Okay, let me see. So we're going to go. Okay, and we don't have any questions on Facebook and no more questions on YouTube at the moment. I think if there's no delay now in the audio, I think the audio works. If the image quality 1080p is correct, then that works. So this was a test episode. So I will leave it online, of course, because I think there were some interesting questions. The only thing we now have to solve is that delay in our desktop. So for next time, send in your questions as soon as you see online that I ask for questions. And we're going to do several Q&As during the month because we now have a proper setup. So see you again next time, and thank you so very much. Bye, guys. Oh. Het ging hartstikke goed.